Hey, I'm Luke with S&S Diesel Motorsport. This is Ian, and we've got our 2021 F250 here. We're going to do some nice things to it today and some not so nice things today. The plan is we're going to do a disaster prevention kit install. We'll do some install videos. Ian's going to be leading up the charge on that. He joined us this year. I used to work with him at Cummins. We did a variety of engine development, and now he's working on product development for us and going to be doing more install videos as well. So luckily, he's one of those rare engineers that also knows how to work on things. So makes for a lot better products that way. So the disaster prevention kit, we've done videos of that in detail, high level. We'll be doing more because there continues to be some confusion about it, but this is the setup for a 2020 and up truck. The kit is the same. There's some little bits and pieces, but the part number in the kit you buy covers all 11 to current. The CP4s, as we know, are a bit of a grenade waiting to go off. When they do, it contaminates the rest of the system. This kit is basically what's jumping on the grenade. So what we're going to do is install video today. We're also going to do introduce a shot of lots of debris and nasty stuff that the pump is definitely not going to like, not going to want to create a failure to then show what the kit does and how it works. We did this previously on a 2016 truck, and that is a two-part series. The Is It Snake Oil is what that one's called, so you can check that out for what happened on that 2016 truck when we pulled one of the rollers out, turned it 90, ground on it to create a terrible situation inside the pump, and then showed what happened. In the case of 2020 and up, the pump design is actually slightly different, where there's actually pins that keep the bucket from rotating. That helps with one failure mode, because in some cases that bucket rotates and then turns 90 on the cam and just cuts a groove. We still see failures out of the 2020 and ups. So in this case, we're going to actually pull the metering unit when we do the bypass kit install. We're going to make a shot that we're going to lovingly call the pin to the grenade that we're going to pull to create the failure, and we'll go for a walk and find some nasty stuff we can find to put in the bottom end of the pump when it goes back together. The reason this works is this is coming straight from the filter, from the factory side filter. This goes right here on top of the pump. This snaps into your normal feed, and then this goes to your filter. So we're splitting off the cleanest fuel in the whole system straight off the filter, going to the bypass block, which blocks the flow from the bottom end of the pump. The failures happen on the bottom end. I've only seen one failure ever of a top end of the pump failure, and that was on an aftermarket head kit, which was not a Bosch product. So the failures happen in the bottom end for a variety of ways, but this blocks that debris from the bottom getting to the top. Metering unit, or FCA, goes back on here, and we're running parallel path to feed directly this, which then goes to your injectors and rails. The pump may still fail, but if it does, this is protecting your injectors. The return side filter is catching all the metal debris that's going back through this line. This filter hangs out on the firewall and catches all the debris before it goes through your fuel cooler, back to your tank, circulates back around through your fuel supply. So this is what we'll be getting installed here. Ian's going to go through that with install video and more details on how to do that and some tips and tricks. And I'm going to go for a walk and find some nasty stuff to put in the bottom of the pump. Going to get more debris. Here's some of the most aggressive stuff you could get. Neat old bandsaw we bought a few weeks ago. We'll get some filings off of there. Some metal hairs. Nice, nasty, gritty stuff. There we go. Oh, perfect. Howdy. We're coming to get some debris for you. Yeah. Cleaning prep station for incoming injectors to clean, buffing wheels and all kinds of abrasive stuff, but we've got a filtration system to keep dust down. So we'll grab some of the stuff that you're not supposed to get. Here we go. Think that'll work?
I think that'll work.
We got some 2-day-old donuts here that one of the guys brought in. We'll grab a little bit of one of those. How about a regular old glazed? We'll get a little this Long John too. Oof. We'll just keep adding to the shot. Here's our friend Shalot from our buddies down in Kentucky, Greg A. and Cordova. You have to check out their dragster video for the odd explanation for that one. I saw some concrete bits out here earlier. That'd surely be one of the worst things you could put in a CP4. What do we got? Some of these bits. Looking for some, whatever's the nastiest abrasive stuff that you'd never want to put in a high pressure fuel pump. There we go. That'll work. That one might be too big to go. Nice shot of our new road sign. We'll go up to my office and top it off. All right, so to stay with the plan of aggressive stuff in here, this is a piston out of the first diesel truck I ever owned, which was an 03 Cummins, that unfortunately the day after I bought it, dropped a valve seat, and the piston crunched it up and ate most of it, sent some of it into the turbo. So within a couple days of that truck, I was pulling the engine out and rebuilding it. Valve seats are extremely hard material. That's what all these bits are. So let me see if I can pluck a couple pieces of valve seat out of here. There we go. That's a pump killer for sure. And let's see if I can get another one. There we go. Another little bit. So hopefully we don't have anything like that happen. We need a fluid to carry this stuff down into the pump. So it's a pretty nice truck, and I kind of feel bad for what we're about to do to it. We might as well at least give it a shot of some double oaked here to ease the pain. Actually, might as well take a shot with it. Sorry, buddy. Cheers. So this is a shot that now we know as the pin for the grenade that is the CP4. So we'll go introduce this into the pump, see how she likes it. I know it's not going to, but we're doing worst case scenarios, everything we can to prove the disaster prevention kit does what it's supposed to. All right, so you saw us go on a little scavenger hunt, collecting all of about the nastiest stuff we could come up with around here. Their bourbon's done a pretty good job of cleaning all the stuff off the metal, so it turned really dark, but a lot of nasty stuff in here. So the plan is we're going to inject this into the pump. We'll show you kind of what these passages look like. Not exactly sure this is going to work. We've obviously never done this before, but the plan is to inject it into there. That goes straight into the bottom end of the pump. These two passages down there is what actually goes to your pumping head. So what we're going to do is try to plug that, inject all the nasty stuff down there, and then what happens is once the bypass block disaster prevention kit goes on, these two O-rings seal off that passageway down there, and all that nasty stuff down in the bottom end of the case where the pump fails will just get deadheaded and blocked right here and not be allowed to go past this. But fuel's fed, clean fuel's fed via this to the metering unit, which is what is the gatekeeper for the fuel into the rest of your system, into your injectors and everything. So worst case scenario, we're trying to really put it through the ringer, and we'll see what happens. The return side coming out of the pump is going to be coming back this way. What we're probably also going to do, just to make it extra worst case, and even a harder test on it, is pinch off the return side, so a lot of this nasty stuff that we're putting in the pump can't even exit or try to flow out for a while, at least while we're initially firing it up and running. Just force it to churn that nasty stuff, and then eventually we'll let the return flow, and then this filter will be catching most of that. There is a screen inside of here before it even gets to here, so some of that's going to plug up. But we want to just simulate worst case, make that thing be churning and puking stuff everywhere. One reason for the redesign of our Gen 2 and 2.1 kit, other than being much easier to install, quick connects everywhere and serviceable, is we've got the normal feed to the bottom end of the pump here, and we split that flow way back here. It's like 2 feet away from here. So we're still feeding the bottom end for cooling and lubrication like normal, which goes through and back out the return, but we're splitting that way back here, so there's a lot of separation. One thing we've found in certain cases, this is like the original design of ours, which was from several years ago. This is the variant. There's a lot of Chinese knockoffs and other companies who have just tried to clone this. One also reason for that redesign, the split here actually happens right inside of this block. So in this design, this line actually gets cut and this gets crimped on. So instead of 2 hoses running parallel, there's 1. And then inside of here, there's like a 2-inch split where it Ys feeds the bottom end of the pump as well as here. It still blocks flow from here, but in a couple cases, it is possible, depending on how this thing fails. There's a screen in the inlet also, but that thing is just churning and can be puking metal all over the place. So we wanted to separate clean from dirty as far as possible with this design. So some of those other knockoffs that are out there of this now have probably not realized that you want to get that separation as far as possible. So that was one benefit, I guess, of more testing and more validation work. In the majority of cases, even the short separation's okay, but it's definitely better because of the pressure pulsations and everything happening here to get those far away. So we're going to take this and hope this works. Some gnarly looking stuff here. It smells good because of the Woodford, but it is gnarly. I'm not 100% sure this is going to flow real well, but we're going to give it a go. It's so gross. There's a piece of 2-day-old donut. All right. So, I might add a little bit more liquid to that to try to get it to flow. Boy, that is gnarly. All right, we're going to try to inject it and see how it works. All right, so here we go. We're going to try to plug this hole down here to, in case we get any overflow, keep the upper part of the pump good. Here's the sketchy part. This poor thing. Sorry, Ian, for what I'm doing to your truck. Oh my goodness. Oh. Oof. She's shooting up. Try to get all the chunks down in the middle there. So we're gonna whip up a concoction of hillbilly apparatus here, I think, to inject even more of this. Contact cleaner is a good lubricant also, right? Oh no, we lost the straw. All right. Okay, so now we're gonna try to pour that through there, see how this works. Some of those chunks, quite a few of them made it, but some didn't, so we will make sure as much gets in there as possible. Oh my gosh, it sounds so gross. Oh, you can literally hear rocks. Okay, I think that'll do it. Now we will put this thing back together and you'll see a fire up video soon. All right, so Ian's got our 2021 button back up. You saw in the previous segment, we're doing all kinds of terrible things to this poor girl. But the bottom end of the pump is filled up with a slurry of bourbon, concrete bits, bandsaw filings, some donuts that somebody left at the bar, grinder dust, and about anything terrible that we could find. We injected into the bottom of the pump while we were going on with the disaster prevention kit. So we showed a little bit earlier, but we'll show better here and with some B-roll. There's 3 passages down where the FCA or metering unit goes and where a bypass block goes. There's 3 passages down there. One, this big one in the top, is the feed from the bottom of the pump up to here. And then there's 2 smaller ones that go out to each head. All the high pressure and what goes to the injectors is fed out those passageways through here, out of the bottom end of the pump after the metering unit. So where we put the shot, the pin that we call it, that we're pulling the pin for the grenade, is down in the main bore of here, which actually goes straight down deep into the bottom of the pump where the roller, cam, and everything's at. What we tried to avoid was getting any debris into the bottom pocket, which then feeds up into these heads. We may or may not have been super successful at that, but we did our best to clean it up. What can happen if guys aren't careful, and we'll see what we get here. Luckily, we know some good fuel system guys, so we can play cleanup if we need to. But what can happen occasionally, not very often, but in a few cases, so this is what this thing's gonna look like. When you go to install your own disaster prevention kit, it's gonna have the metering unit in the top like that. A lot of times there's dust, dirt, stuff like that on the top. Some guys will just pull this thing out, and next thing you know, you drop stuff down in here. Occasionally that will get into one of the valves in the pump, up in the top of the head. It doesn't fail it catastrophically, but it's like having a problem with your intake or exhaust valve on an engine. It makes it low compression, and this thing's basically a pump just like an engine's an air pump. So what can happen is it creates a no start or a low output pump. Sometimes we can repair that if you send the pump to us, but the key takeaway is just make sure you don't introduce any debris. That's for any common rail fuel system, but especially for these. Whether you're changing fuel filters, doing anything upstream, make sure it's clean. If you're ever taking this off to install anything or work on it, make sure you clean all these surfaces really well before you ever open it up to prevent problems. So anyways, we're doing all the wrong things just to really put this kit through its paces. So this will go on there like that, and metering unit on top. The other thing we're doing also, which you never ever want to do, but just to extra abuse this poor thing, we're pinching off the supply that goes to the bottom of the pump. So this feeds the top to the metering unit for the high pressure side. This feeds the bottom end, which is cooling and lubrication for the bottom of the pump where the cam's at and everything. That's where our slurry of bourbon and nastiness is. So we actually don't want it to flush that out. So we figured just to extra abuse the poor thing. We'll pinch this off for a little while, and it's just gonna sit there and churn that slurry of metal bits and bourbon. So it'll be interesting. We're gonna start it up here in just a minute and see how it acts, and then Ian's gonna drive it home is the plan.
Hoping I make it home.
How far a drive is it?
About 30 miles.
About 30 miles.
Friday night.
So. I don't know what you plan on doing this weekend.
Yeah, well, probably driving around a little bit. Go to church and hopefully
pray on your way there and back.
Yep, for sure.
So the last time we did this, you might have seen it on the silver truck, the Silver Bullet, super original name, when we went to UCC and back pulling a trailer. When you have the bypass kit installed, it's protecting all the important parts. So the thing can go a surprisingly long period of time while it's really wounded before the truck ever actually stalls or lays down on you. That's a pretty significant side benefit of the kit. The main purpose is just to protect everything, but you can also drive on it a long time. And usually you can tell you have a problem, but since your injectors aren't getting destroyed and everything else, you can just keep driving the dumb thing until it officially lays down on you, or until you can get home or get to a shop or whatever else. So that's what we're gonna do, is drive it as far as it'll let us drive and tear it down next week and kind of do an analysis of what happened and what the condition of everything else is in. So we added some extra data acquisition gear. We've got a Bosch Motorsport DDU9 in it, which is what normally we'd use in race cars to control our test bench monitoring and that kind of thing. But we've got that one actually lived in the silver truck for a while, doing a bunch of data acquisition for new product development as well as CP4 failures. And so we'll show you a little bit of that as well, but it's got pressure sensors on the return side, which the truck normally doesn't have, temperature sensors, pressure on different area in the supply side, and temperature. We're also measuring current, electrical current milliamps to the FCA metering unit, as well as the DRV, the electronic relief valve, to kind of see what the system's doing. So we're collecting a lot of data to really analyze what's happening when these are failing, as well as for future product development. So we'll show you some of that gear in there as well. But I think we're about ready to fire it up. You wanna try it?
Do it.
So we've cycled the key quite a few times, checking for leaks, purging air, things like that. So hopefully most of the air is bled, but we'll see what happens. Another key cycle. What's supply pressure at?
110. He is,
Maxed out. Should be doing something. Our metering unit current is actually fairly high. More wishful thinking. If we can get engine speed up a little and pump speed up a little, it might have enough output. Oh yeah. It's a beauty, Clark.
75 supply pressure.
Are we still pinched off? No. Oh, we're still pinched off. Yeah, we're good. Official don't recommend, but when you're in a pinch. So the pump is extra hating life right now because we've got it unplugged, so it's full flow, wide open metering unit, and we've got the supply to the bottom of the pump pinched off, so it's just forced circulating, churning bourbon and concrete and metal bits. It doesn't sound that bad right now. It sounds way better than the silver truck when we killed that pump. It was clattering and making all kinds of racket that Justin had to drive up to UCC.
You can kind of hear a little bit of noise already.
So at some point we can take the hose pinch off. So we unplugged the FCA or the metering unit to force the pump wide open. We had current sensors in line on both of those just to test the theory that we didn't introduce a problem on the DRV side. We disconnected our current sensors and went back with just factory connector. None of that had an effect, so that's when we gave her a little huff of go-go juice to get some RPM up, to get pump speed up, to purge a little bit of stuff that we had going. So we'll re-button it back up, I guess, and see how far she goes. All right, so we got her fired up. We kind of lucked out. We must have, when we were introducing debris, pouring our shot into the bottom, got a little bit of that. We knew we got some overflow because it's impossible to see how deep that actually is. And so when we first cranked it, it pushed a little bit of stuff into the valves, basically exactly what I was explaining. But we did a couple things, gave it a little huff of starting fluid, which you got to make sure that it's not going to run the glow plugs or you don't have grid heaters or something like that, obviously. Your standard starting fluid safety precautions, but we were able to get enough engine speed in it to then get enough pump speed to push out whatever little bit of something we had trapped in it. So should be good to go. We fired it up a couple times.
Yep. Now the debris is only in the bottom end, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We had debris in the top end from our introducing debris.
Yep. So we still got it pinched off here just to make this thing hate life even more. We'll take that off here before you head out for the weekend. You got a big day planned for tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't know, Lowe's. Probably get some wallpaper, maybe some flooring. Bed Bath & Beyond, if there's time.
So, perfect lead in. What we did that you're not supposed to do, and what I was just saying don't do, which occasionally we'll have to repair pumps for guys that do this. Not naming any names of certain dealers or anything, but you know who you are. I will pop. Ooh, she's tight. So this is an inlet valve from a CP4, and the reason that this can happen is there's hardly any travel of this valve. So it doesn't take much to get hung up in there. So this is the equivalent of your intake valve on in a cylinder head on an engine. It's just in a cylinder head in the pump. So that valve sits right down here. If you get debris down in here, it tries to feed this valve. Then it doesn't take much to get a little piece of debris stuck in there, and that hangs that open. So then when that plunger comes up to try to compress, it just pushes it right back into the intake essentially again. So it can't ever really build pressure. So that's what happens occasionally if you get a little piece of debris in these. There's a big difference between a CP4 failing and a lot of debris, that everything's trashed unless you have our kit on it, and a piece of debris or two that gets introduced when you pull the metering unit off or do stupid stuff like we were doing, and then get it stuck in here. Usually that's a really small amount of debris, but just enough to get the valve hung open. And sometimes we can repair that. If you, in here, usually what we'll do, we'll blow compressed air in through this cavity, and actually it can be the outlet valve that has debris stuck in it as well. So combination of the two. Oftentimes we actually see the outlet valve, which is in here, similar. They're both just check valves that get hung open. So you can see air leakage through it sometimes. Either way, that's how that works and why you need to be super careful about cleanliness and getting any debris into it. In this case, we lucked out. The little piece we were able to push through, but there is a small amount that can do that. Like I say, that's a lot different than when it's generating a lot of debris from a bottom end failure. If you don't have our disaster prevention kit on and your pump is failing, it's constantly sending that kind of stuff through the valves and damaging the valves of the pump, as well as damaging all your injectors. So your pump output starts to go down, your injector leakage starts going way up, and that's why the truck actually stalls and dies, usually fairly quickly, because the pump just can't keep up with all the extra leakage because everything's wounded. In the case with this on, the bottom of the pump's getting trashed, but everything else is healthy, and the injectors don't know any different. They don't even know what's going on. So we will put it back together. It's pretty well done, and drive it out and see how exciting of a weekend you have.
Exactly.
Anything else?
Nope. We'll see how it goes.
All right.